I'm going to ask Jim Lang, because he's Canada's foremost NFL expert. Jimbo, how much do you think it would cost to rent the Sphere at Super Bowl for an hour, Super Bowl night for an event? Actually, the night before.
Oh, I'd probably say $100,000 minimum.
$2 million.
Really? Wow.
Yes. So they're like, yeah, we're not going to be having the Super Bowl in the Sphere. No. We went to the Clark County Amphitheater. We had a big time with Lee. How about that? With Lee Steinberg and Earl Campbell. And by the way, we don't need a big fancy place. We just need us recovery folk. Anyways, how you doing, my guy? It's been too long.
I'm good, Rod. How are you doing?
Oh, wonderful. I'm in Canada for the summer, broadcasting minor league baseball, following the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. Kind of missing NFL football. Let us get caught up on that. Biggest thing in the NFL today is Tom Brady going into the Patriots Hall of Fame last night. What did you think of his speech and that whole, all the hubbub around it?
I thought it was a good glimpse into Tom and like what drove him. He was so driven because of being that 6th-round pick and 199th overall. And a lot of players say, I have a chip on my shoulder, but eventually find success in whatever line of work, business, sport they're in, whatever individual. Eventually you're successful, you're making money, and you don't have the chip on your shoulder for some reason. Tom kept that chip pretty much right to the very end of his career. And, you know, it's a clip that from the speech last night that's making the rounds by a lot of minor hockey coaches, baseball, basketball, amateur sport coaches, and they're trying to part upon their players. Like, look, this is what Tom Brady says about work and the importance of hard work and dedication, that it's an all the time thing. And it's, you know, you see the, sometimes you'll see the clips of Miracle with Kurt Russell and from the Miracle on Ice, and you'll see clips of different sports movies, and it's, you know, they're trying, like, you got to work hard. But like Tom Brady didn't have to be told that. He had such a career that he did for so long that he was good in his 20s. He was better in his 30s. He was even better in his 40s because he never stopped working on and off the field. And you know, so many people who are successful in the world, you'll hear their friends say, you know, like they're always working. And like it doesn't happen by accident. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from it. I'm not surprised that he retired the number. Who else would dare wear number 12 in New England? I mean, why would he even bother trying to give it away? So, I mean, he's one of the great athletes. Forget football players we've seen in the last 20 years. And his list of accomplishments set a standard so high. I'm not sure in this day and age of, you know, win 1 or 2 rings and you've kind of done something, we're going to see someone come close to his numbers.
I can't see anybody doing it, but I just want to go a little further and then we'll switch gears. Tom did have to be told. There's an online therapy company where you can get remote coaching where Tom's a spokesman for it. I think it's called Good Help. And Tom said it was in Michigan at university where he was brought in by the school sports psychologist and said, I had to change my thinking because I thought everybody else was the problem. And every morning when I got out of bed, I was pointing the fingers at everybody else for my problems. And it changed my thinking. I was defeating myself before I even got out of bed. And that was 25 years ago, he said. So he's like, if I can get therapy, you can get therapy. So Tom did change the way he thought. You just have to be open to it. Looks like you have something to say to that.
Yeah, Bob to a book along those lines called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, who Jocko Willink was a Navy SEAL officer who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. In his whole thing, and he's a corporate speaker now, and he says, if something goes wrong, you have to stop pointing fingers. If you're involved, hey, I'm involved, it's on me. And he said for him in the military, kept him and his platoon alive, but he's imparting that upon business people. He's teaching people in business and sales and marketing that you can't always blame everyone else for something. If it's you're involved, you take ownership to it. And it's not just a sports lesson. I think it's a life lesson, Rod. It's important for all of us to try to do that, because sometimes it's human nature. Like, oh, I had my man. Look at the other defenseman. And, you know, great. You don't hear that often, great players, do you? You don't hear a Sidney Crosby or a Joe Sakic or Steve Yzerman say, no, it was them. They always point their finger at themselves.
Well, the last thing I'll say on that is the best thing I ever did was work with the military, and I know you're from a military family in mental health and addiction recovery. You know what I learned from them, Jim? They said to me,
what?
Somebody makes a mistake with us, somebody overlooks a detail, we don't get a second chance.
Yep.
And that's why I don't overlook details. Again, they've got it. They've got it. Now, Stanley Cup, we would be ridiculous not to talk about that. You're a best-selling author of many hockey topics, and we'll talk about your latest in a second. But do you see this Stanley Cup final switching tonight? Because the venues have switched, Florida up 2-0, or how do you think it'll go?
You talk about attention to detail. This is where Paul Maurice, in 30 years of being a head coach in the NHL, has got the attention to detail. And Sergei Bobrovsky has given up 2 goals in 3 games. You think about that in the Stanley Cup final, in today's day and age, he's given up 2 goals in 3 games. And that's why they're up 2-0 in the series. That's why they're back to the Stanley Cup final. They have a lot of attention to detail. It's a deep, well-coached team. It's a physical, tough team. And unless Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman find a way to get a goal early and get the crowd into it and get some momentum, the Panthers will grind them down. And for as far as I'm concerned, the game will be determined in the first period whether or not the Oilers can get on the scoreboard and go into the intermission with a lead. To me, that's going to determine everything. Because if it's 0-0 after 1 period, then Florida shrugs their shoulders and go, we got them. Because we're going to be in their head. They've only scored 1 goal in 2 games. And the longer it goes, the worse it gets mentally for Connor McDavid and the Oilers.
Rich Sutter just said it last hour on this program. He's like, it's mental now. It's everything you just said. So I guess the good thing is I'll be able to watch the first period tonight, and then I'll be broadcasting minor league baseball tonight, Western Canadian Baseball League. So maybe it'll be over by then. That's a good thing. Hey, we're rapid fire on a lot of topics here. I know you can handle it. You're a veteran broadcaster. Craig Berube, how do we feel? Coach of the Leafs.
I feel good. It will be interesting what Brad Treliving does to complement Craig and what he wants out of the Maple Leafs. I know he has spent the last few weeks since being appointed getting to know the players. And it's going to be a Brendan Shanahan, Brad Treliving, Craig Berube triumvirate, if you will, going over notes and determining what's the best course of action. Now, for a lot, the NHL, they do a lot of copycat stuff. We've seen certain teams and certain styles of play over the years, and teams try to emulate it because they were successful. And what the Florida Panthers have done and what the Vegas Golden Knights have done, big defensemen, tough physical teams, it's a reminder to GMs and coaches that it's still a physical game. It's great to have skill, but you have to have a bit of a balance. I find Florida has a good balance between some really skilled players and really heavy, hard forwards and defensemen. And I really believe that Craig Berube wants to take a bit of the Paul Maurice page from his playbook and try to put that into the Leafs, because I think the Leafs don't have a problem with skill and talent. They've got that in abundance, but can they balance it a little bit so when the games get rough and the series get rough and the calls aren't going their way, they don't wilt? Do they still perform?
Rich brought up a great point last hour, too, by the way. I'm just bouncing these things off you from what he said. He said the Panthers players are good people. They're good people. And I'm like, well, they are, because I'm around them all the time, as is their management and coaching staff. And sometimes we wonder if that's a forgotten concept or trait of a winning team. And I'm just going to flip this to the Leafs. For what you know, are they good people? Like, I look at Mitch Marner and think, he looks like a lot of fun, a great kid. Is that a thing with the Leafs? Do you think you got to be a great person? Because I've seen it in the CFL with the Riders. Our championship teams, the mantra was, you got to be a good person or you can't play on this team. And we won championships.
That's a good question, because I met Nick Hague last year doing the research for the book, the big defenseman with the Vegas Golden Knights, and he's just such a nice guy, and he's what you qualify as a good person. William Nylander has become, Leaf fans love him now. And he's done these series, these really funny commercials for the TTC, and he's coming off a great year of production. So, I mean, yes and no. I mean, at the end of the day, I think fans want their team to win. And whether or not they're quote unquote a good person or they're all friends or they all get along, if you win the game and your team wins a championship, you know, not every office is filled with good people. Not every place of business is filled with good people. Now, you would hope
We know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think mentally, especially, the NHL, they start training camp in September and now it's June. You're with your players and coaches and staff and your trainers more than your own family for months on end. So you can't all be jerks, you know what I'm saying? But not everyone's maybe going to be the same level of good, but when your best players and your leaders are good people, like a Joe Sakic was with Colorado, like Sidney Crosby with Pittsburgh, and that's your benchmark, that's your measuring stick, the other players tend to fall in line. I'm a believer in that.
It certainly helps, but you're right. You're like, if you win, we won't care whether you're a good person or not. Yeah, but it's not the end justifies the means is the way that's said, and it's like of course, but I'm not sure that's the way that we go about it. Which, by the way, I feel like we're leading into the talk on the Blue Jays. We'll end it on this.
Mm-hmm.
Guy, did anybody expect this to happen this year?
I mean, Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, they believe they know more than everybody else. They're smarter than everybody else. They know baseball better than anybody else. And even when they lose and lose badly, they'll just say it with a straight face to the media and the fans that we competed and blah, 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 and we did this and we did that. And quite frankly, a lot of Jays fans who pay a lot of money to go see the team play and buy the merchandise are getting a little frustrated. And they're looking around Major League Baseball and seeing other teams have a lot more success. And I'm still confused why they traded Kevin Biggio to the Dodgers for a minor league pitcher. Something must have happened in the clubhouse or with management. He was a useful, multi-purpose player who seemed to play a lot of different positions without complaint. Unless something happened that no one knows about. But they walk and talk and act like they know better than everybody else, and don't you dare question them. And they have the answer to everything. Well, okay, all right, okay. So I mean,
hey,
well, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting.
I'm watching it from afar, seeing that exact same thing. And you and I, well, you worked at Sportsnet for a long time, so you know a lot more than I do so, about what's going on in there. And it's like, if you win, you can do whatever the hell you want. But you lose, people are going to be on your ass right away. And that's kind of where the Blue Jays are at, right?
It's tough for a baseball fan or a Blue Jay fan in Toronto to just accept what they say when Alex Anthopoulos has built a juggernaut in Atlanta. And people try to write it off. Well, he inherited a good team. Okay, it's not like he didn't do anything. But
so did these guys.
Look what he's built. Right. So, but everyone wants to apologize for them and give them excuses and blah blah blah. And if the analytics will listen to what they have to say, and they have got all the answers, and it's a process. And you're like, okay, I'm watching other teams, and why do they? How do they do it? Well, and so I think for Jays fans, their patience is quickly running out on the management and how this team is put together.
Fantastic. Man, we covered it all, brother. Good to see you. Enjoy Game 3 tonight, and let's do it again soon. Oh, yeah, your book. We got a minute.
Get my book for Father's Day.
Looks like it's going great. No.
Yeah,
we can't spend a minute on that.
Okay. It's my day with a group of players and coaches, including Saskatoon's Darcy Kemper, talking about what they did when they had their day with the Stanley Cup and why it was important to them, just like for Darcy to be in Saskatoon or Sidney Crosby to be in Nova Scotia. And it's a lot of cool stories and stories that maybe people didn't realize about the Stanley Cup, some of the traditions around the Stanley Cup, the taboos, what you can and cannot do with it if you're a player. And we're getting some good feedback and good response. And I hope people get it because I'm sure you'll like it.
I'm seeing the response. It's good. And you're doing your book signings, which is always fun. You got a funny book signing story for me? You got a quick book signing story?
No, not yet, because to be honest with you, things are different post-pandemic, Rod. A lot of the stuff, I've done a few like small signings, but not traditional. It's different post-pandemic. It really is. A lot of it is the Zoom, Skype, maybe a media appearance, but not the traditional people lined up, in a bookstore, that kind of thing.
All right, gotcha, buddy. Okay, enjoy the sports. We'll do it again soon.
Go Moose Jaw.
Exactly. Jim Clubber Lang. The WHL champion Moose Jaw Warriors, I might add, and the Miller Express tonight, home to the Regina Red Sox. It's going to be fun to see those boys again.